Hi everybody, welcome to Nuggets Europe. It's our first main show, so I'm delighted that the intro went okay and we're actually here. Delighted to be joined, folks, by Ryan Blackburn, who is you're obviously the site manager for the Denver Stiffs, a website I've looked at for a long time, Ryan. I have to say, from speaking to a number of Nuggets fans over here, and just for myself, we're definitely honored to have you on.
I'm great to be on. Great to be on. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you having me. I'm excited to get this thing going. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too, man. It just took a global pandemic for Nuggets Europe to properly get started, but it's all good. It's all good. We are actually, folks, recording this on the Wednesday, so obviously the Nuggets play in a couple of hours in the scrimmage game, but this will be out before the next game, so if anybody is wondering what we're talking about, it's all good. If anything crazy does happen, Ryan, in the first game, you can blame me when this goes out, because our website, Colorado Europe, doesn't launch until Thursday. Ryan, first of all, just really quickly, man, you're obviously a Denver native, but just tell us a bit about your background. Obviously, you're involved with the Denver Stiffs. Did you know from a young age that you wanted to cover the Nuggets?
You know, I played football and baseball in high school for a while, and there was a point where I had a major shoulder surgery, and I had to wonder if professional playing and being a player in college wasn't ever going to work out for me, what was I going to do? I thought, I love sports. I don't want to go away from it. I'd love to keep covering it from any which way. And I came across Denver Stiffs at around that same time and started commenting and hanging out the comment sections and talking to some of the writers. And I grew accustomed to it. I love writing and sharing my opinions and talking about the team. And I went to school to study sport management, so I have a little bit of background there from a team side as well. And when I came back, things just kind of fell into place that while I was writing on the side, Adam Morris went over to DNVR and he tabbed me to be the next site manager of Denver Stiffs. And I didn't know if I was going to be ready for the position at the time, but I'm certainly ready now. And a pandemic definitely puts you through your paces really quickly. But we're going to see. I've grown up a lot in this role. I became very quickly accustomed to it, and I've really loved doing it. So if that answers your question.
Yes, sir. And it's obvious from even looking at your Twitter profile and looking at the content that the Denver Stiffs are putting out on a daily basis. It is a great resource. So if anybody in Europe is covering or looking to cover and view the Nuggets, it's really important to check those sort of content websites out. Honored to have you on, man. Obviously, the first few games coming up now. The first big game is obviously next Saturday. It's next Saturday evening for us. It's a bit of an early game to an extent for you guys.
Yes, it is.
I was saying to Ben on our first show yesterday that he actually said he's been a Nuggets fan for 10, 15 years, and he was saying over here for us, there's never been as much Nuggets games on TV in one season. It never happened. So every game for us is live, thank God. Obviously, the good thing about having Nuggets Europe is there's obviously that European contingent especially with the roster. Let's just jump into it, man. Like, can I just say this right now? The minute I seen that picture of Jokic and Novak Djokovic hanging out, and it came out the next day that Djokovic had coronavirus, I knew I was waiting for the news. That's not even news anymore, like, which is crazy because obviously like Von Miller and stuff and has had COVID-19, and many players across the US and across Europe have had COVID-19. But Jokic just turned up, and he is slimmer than my phone, which is pretty cool. Do you think that's going to add an element of I was going to say unpredictability to his game, or are you excited to see what he's like, or do you think that maybe it might take away from his aggressiveness just a little bit?
I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. I'm more interested in seeing how it actually helps him defensively, just because that's if you look for the 1 week. It's being that guy in the open space who can stay with the guys like LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard and last year's playoffs. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum were pretty good examples of that. If he can stay on the perimeter and stay agile and stay in front of those players, it adds a whole new dimension to what the Nuggets can do defensively. Offensively, they're going to be fine. The best version of Jokic is one that is versatile. It's one that, like he is looking right now, can both post up, but also can go around his man and can also be a little bit more agile when he's out there on the perimeter. The last time he was this skinny, he shot 40% from three on the season. That was his third year in the 2017-18 season. So if he's shooting better, if he's playing better defensively, if he can tie that all together with what he's been doing over the past couple of years, we've got a special player on our hands.
Yes, sir, and you're completely spot on in what you're saying there as well. And I know we can't really compare it, Ryan, to the NBA, but obviously looking at different leagues, for example, in soccer, the Premier League, the MLS, technically soccer was the first sport to come back from COVID-19. Arguably, I'm not going to count the Korean baseball league, but I'll just say from my own experience watching it that the first few games were very hard to watch. I'm going to be honest. Like the fitness level, of course, is not going to be at the level peak season, but at least the Nuggets have those, I think it's free scrimmage games, because obviously the news that came out in the NFL in the last 24 hours, there's going to be no preseason whatsoever. It's an interesting state of games, Ryan. I'm going to say the actual 8 games, the seeding games. Realistically, what do you think would be an appropriate or a positive outcome for the Nuggets? I'm not going to say 8-0, but what would you take right now and run for the hills, as I say over here?
That goes. I don't think the Nuggets are going to take the preseason, the scrimmages, that seriously in terms of getting their players all that ready physically. I think they're going to be using those initial seeding games, the next 8 games on their schedule, to get themselves as ready for the playoffs as possible. That's getting their players healthy and engaged again, making sure to not necessarily push them too hard at the very beginning, but get them as ready as they possibly can get. I mean, Nikola Jokic has only been with the team for a week, and that's a little bit crazy when we've heard how fast this thing is going. I put out on Twitter a couple of days ago that the playoffs are going to start in 4 weeks' time. It's going to be a quick turnaround. Things are going to go very, very quickly. I would expect that this team is going to take their time in getting ready to play, and they're going to kind of ease into things as opposed to really going full bore, trying to get those wins and potentially injuring some guys for the long term. That's the last thing anybody wants heading into a postseason, and I think the Nuggets know that.
Yeah, and obviously you're saying there about Jokic only really being in there a week in the States from Europe. Do you think the late arrival of Gary Harris and Torrey Craig is going to have an effect as well? Because these guys coming in towards the end of this whole preparation, it could have a bit of a domino effect, but hopefully we'll get to pick it up maybe towards even the middle half of those seeding games.
We're going to see. I think those guys are going to be a little bit more ready to go than people realize. I think they might even be able to play towards the tail end of the scrimmage games. I think they'll be ready. I think the Nuggets are going to try and get them integrated as quickly as possible. Not necessarily to play a bunch of minutes. Only those 3 guys are guards on the roster right now that are down in the bubble. If those guys play too much time, then that's going to ruin Denver's playoff chances in the postseason if one of those guys were to get injured. So they're going to try and get Gary Harris and Torrey Craig involved as quickly as they can. And I think that'll help the entire product. You want as many players on your roster at your disposal as early as possible. And so the Nuggets have been operating at a deficit for a while. I think once everybody gets back into the bubble, gets back into the swing of things, things will look a lot more normal.
And hopefully that is going to be the case. Ryan, it was actually quite weird. There was an NBA preview show on this week over here in the UK and Ireland, and one of the main players they looked at was Bol Bol. I know he's getting a lot of hype over in Colorado. I'm just wondering, have you any expectation just ahead of these, obviously, the scrimmage games? And more importantly, do you think he could be a late entrant to any of these 8 seeding games?
I'll answer the second one first. I don't think he's going to be a major factor in the seeding games. I think it would be very uncharacteristic of Michael Malone somebody who's notorious for making his players earn it, especially on the defensive end, in order to generate massive playing time. If the Nuggets have the majority of their roster back by the time the seeding games start, which I expect them to, then I doubt that Bol Bol plays. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not excited for Bol Bol, though, because what we've seen from him, what we've heard about him, is very similar to the stuff that we heard about Michael Porter Jr. coming back into the season at the very tail end of this past season. He was looking great level. Bol Bol is getting these same comparisons. And these players, these coaches, they don't say those things lightly. They don't say those things just to boost the confidence of the player they're talking about. If they say it, they genuinely believe it, and there's no reason for them to say otherwise. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. I think he'll get some run in these scrimmage games. Not sure how much he gets in the seeding games, but if the Nuggets are taking those a little bit slower, then maybe he does have an impact. You never know.
And it would be awesome to see if he even had a small impact. I think Twitter would just absolutely explode, man. Look, just finally, I wanted to just have a look at the whole COVID-19 situation, and not just the NBA, Ryan, but in terms of the sport in general. We've obviously seen Jamal Murray grow hair higher than I ever can in the space of 4 months. I have to say, how impressive was that? And hopefully it brings another edge to his game, Ryan.
I never thought I would see Jamal Murray's afro be as big as it is. But you're right. There is some craziness going on with the COVID-19, and different people are taking it in different ways. People are factoring in how to live their life in various ways. And Jamal, I think he kind of grew up a little bit during this quarantine. I think he started to put some things together. He has had his mishaps in the past, but he seems, and when we talked to him in the off season a little bit, probably about a couple of months ago, he just sounded like a different person. He sounded like somebody who had grown up just a little bit while he was stuck at home. And it's weird to say that a situation like this could really put things in perspective for people, but I think that really is what happened with somebody like Jamal. And I'm sure a lot of the on protests that have been going on in the United States right now. We've seen Will Barton do a lot of the same stuff. He's been very vocal about that. Combine that with the situation with COVID-19, and we've got this perfect storm of a lot of craziness that has been going on. And people don't really know how to react in a lot of these situations. But for Jamal, it's been one way. For Will Barton and Jeremy Grant, it's been another. And we're going to see how this team comes together and really finds their way through all of this.
And I have to say, I'm very impressed in regards to how the NBA have handled maybe getting players into this bubble. And for example, seeing the facilities they have, I've seen how bad I shouldn't be saying this on a podcast, but I've seen how bad the MLS players have had it, to be honest. It's shocking. Like, I mean, in comparison to the NBA, when players have suites and stuff, I personally think if the MLS can give through 3.5 weeks of a bubble, the NBA shouldn't have an issue. Obviously, touch wood in that sense. But at the end of the day, just the final question here, Ryan, sport in general, and not just the NBA, is going to have a huge sort of drop back from this. And obviously the season calendars for at least 1 or 2 years to come technically could be out of the window in terms of normality. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that there, because obviously if the Nuggets do have a decent enough playoff run, it's going to be an interesting offseason as well. Like the actual dates are just going to be messed up. For example, in soccer, I don't know how they're going to complete the next season, because it's so, at least in basketball, or at least in football, for example, in the NFL, there is a longer off-season period, but it's definitely messing the calendar up just a little bit.
Right. No, I'm in full agreement. I can't necessarily speak to the soccer or the football side, but I'll definitely speak to the basketball side. October to June. October is when they were supposed to start up, and now because of COVID-19, because of the way things have been delayed, that's when they're going to be ending this season that we're going through right now. So it's going to be very crazy. It's going to be completely flipped on its head. And the talk that in the NBA has been that they'll probably try and start the next regular season in mid-December or so. I don't know if that's going to happen. It might be longer than that. These players definitely, after spending a bunch of time in a bubble environment, it's going to be very stressful. They're probably going to want to get away from basketball for a little bit after this. I would expect it to start up around the new year. And if that's the case, then things could be pushed off even more after that. The regular season could end in June, and then the playoffs could then go through September. And if that's the case, then we'll have to kind of cross that bridge.
And I hope to be able to share a beer with you in Pepsi Center next year if there is a season with fans. I'll definitely come over, and if I'm allowed. Look, folks, if you are watching this and you're finding Denver Stiffs for the first time, give Ryan a follow at NBA Blackburn and at Denver Stiffs, and follow. Obviously, you got a podcast and a great website there as well. Appreciate you coming on. There is no legal basis for us to watch the Pelicans game on Saturday night. I think it's that Saturday night. It was Sunday morning, Ryan, at 1:30 a.m. UK Ireland, 2:30 a.m. Europe. There is no legal way to watch. It's on Altitude Sports in the US. If anybody wants to sort that out, I'll happily watch a game with you, Ryan. It's been a complete pleasure, man. Hopefully we can do this again, and hopefully these 8 games go well, and we're in for a big playoff run.
Of course, anytime. I'm more than happy to come on.
Now 2-time Super Bowl champion. A final star turn it is for Peyton. And the Denver Broncos have taken